Imagine a voice velvet smooth, soft as smoke, inviting you to step closer. The world narrows. Your chest tightens with something you can't name. Curiosity, warmth, the flutter of danger. You should be wary, but instead you feel seen, understood, chosen. In that suspended moment, something ancient wakes up inside you. You have been charmed. You have been chosen by a trickster. This video is a lantern in the dark corridors of charisma and deceit. If you've ever been fooled by someone who seemed too good to be true, if you've ever fallen for a lie that felt like truth, stay. We're going to pull back the veil and learn the secret language of charm, the subtle physics of influence, and most importantly, how to reclaim your power. Why this matters. There's a type of person who glides into rooms like a warm breeze and leaves with hands full of favors, secrets, and the trust of strangers. They might be brilliant, magnetic, utterly convincing. We call them tricksters, not simply criminals or liars, but archetypal figures who bend reality through charm. Tricksters show up in folklore and in the boardroom, in politics and in romance. They are everywhere because our brains, shaped by millions of years of social life, are wired to assume others are allies until proven otherwise. Understanding the psychology of tricksters isn't an intellectual curiosity. It's a survival skill for modern social life. In this video, we'll look at the architecture of charm, map the cognitive and emotional channels it hijacks, and equip you with practical strategies to recognize, resist, and transform encounters with manipulators. This is not about paranoia. It's about clarity. If you want to see the mechanics beneath the mask, you are in the right place. The archetype of the trickster. Across cultures, the trickster is a constant. Coyote in Native American tales, Loki in Norse myth, Anansi in West African stories. These figures disrupt, deceive, teach, and transform. Why do societies tell trickster tales? Because tricksters reveal the fragile seams of social order. They show us where rules bend, where language is slippery, where desire can be weaponized. In humans, the trickster archetype manifests in several forms. The charmer, effortlessly affable, knows exactly what to say. The con artist, methodical, patient, and strategic. The narcissistic deceiver uses grandiosity to mask deficits and manipulate admiration. The social engineer exploits systems and human habits rather than individuals' emotions. What unites them is a mastery of social calibration. They read rooms well, find leverage points, and pivot relationships toward their advantage. They are neither wholly evil nor wholly empty. They are adaptive. Understanding their archetype helps you spot the pattern before it unfolds. The neurobiology of being fooled. To understand why we fall for tricksters, we must look inside the brain. Decision-making is not one monochrome process, but a chorus. Fast, emotional systems, System 1. Sing first and slower, deliberative systems, System 2. Sing backup. Tricksters speak the language of System 1. Mirror neurons and social reward circuits are central. When we perceive warmth, mirroring mechanisms make us feel as if we've already been accepted. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, surges in trusting contexts. Shared laughter, mutual disclosure, lowering our suspicion and increasing approachability. This chemical landscape is what tricksters exploit. Cognitive biases are the building blocks. Confirmation bias. We accept information that confirms our desires. Halo effect. Positive impressions in one domain, looks, eloquence, spill over to other judgments, honesty, competence. Authority bias. We obey perceived authority without checking evidence. Social proof. If others trust someone, we are more likely to trust them. Tricksters design their narratives and behavior to trigger these biases. They sow seeds of trust, prune doubts, and over time, cultivate compliance. Knowing that these are predictable brain patterns reduces the shame of being fooled and opens a path to change. The mechanics of charm. Charm is not mystery. It's technique, but it's technique fused to timing and authenticity. Here are the core elements. 1. Attunement. Tricksters mirror your posture, your words, your tempo. Matching micro-expressions create a feeling of we are the same. This attunement feels intimate and safe. 2. Storytelling. They tell stories that cast you as a hero or the mirror to their own vulnerability. Stories that evoke identity. You remind me of someone who fights for what's right. engaged self-concept. 3. Strategic disclosure, a well-timed confession, true or fabricated, makes the trickster seem transparent. This creates a paradoxical sense of trust. They told me something personal, so they must be honest. 4. The social proof cascade. Tricksters manufacture credibility. Fake testimonials, curated networks, staged applause, so that others' trust becomes a lever. 5. Scarcity and urgency. This opportunity won't last triggers rapid, often unreflective decisions. 6. Flattery and validation. People crave being seen. Flattery is a shortcut to compliance. But genuine validation differs from flattery. Tricksters use a skillful blend. Enough truth to feel real, enough exaggeration to manipulate. 7. Disarming humor. A joke at the right time loosens defenses and reframes a dynamic in the trickster's favor. These tactics combine into choreography. The trickster doesn't simply say nice things. They stage an experience that aligns your internal narrative with their desired outcome. The language of influence, rhetoric and framing. Words are weapons. Framing is a sword's edge. Tricksters craft language to direct cognition. Presuppositions, questions that embed assumptions. When you decide to join us, presupposes intent. Loaded metaphors. We're fighting a war evokes unity and urgency. Anchoring. Presenting a high price and offering a discount makes any smaller number look reasonable. The foot in the door. Small initial requests prime large commitments later. Beyond explicit rhetoric, they control context. Who speaks first? The ambient mood, the setting. Context shapes meaning. A trickster who meets you in a dim, intimate cafe versus a sterile conference room will produce different effects. Emotional triggers that make us vulnerable. Certain emotional states dismantle critical thought. Loneliness. In the ache of social isolation, a kind voice is a lifeline. Grief. Mourning narrows attention and increases suggestibility. Ambition in times of scarcity. When opportunities seem rare, risk tolerance increases. Identity threat. If someone validates your threat and identity, you cling harder. Tricksters purposefully target these vulnerabilities. The lonely, the grieving, the hopeful. They don't need manufactured suffering. They locate it and approach with surgical softness, creating a sense of being saved. Case studies and composite stories. Story 1, The Investment Charmer. James was an engineer who loved clear logic. He met Elena at a networking event, elegant, witty, and strangely candid. Weeks later, she had a once-in-a-lifetime plan and asked James to invest. She provided glossy PDFs, endorsements, and a story of humble origins. James, who craved financial independence, saw a mirror of his aspiration. He invested. The project collapsed. Elena vanished. What happened? Elena had calibrated her pitch, mirroring social proof, scarcity, storytelling. James' cognitive investment, his imagination of future self, outpaced his due diligence. Story 2, The Charismatic Leader. A small community formed around a leader who claimed visionary insight and spiritual gifts. Members reported transformation, new jobs, more confidence. Over time, the leader demanded deeper commitment. Resources, loyalty, secrecy. Psychological pressure mounted. Dissenters were gently isolated. What began as booing support became social captivity. This is a classic trickster arc. Charisma plus escalated commitment equals control. Story 3, The Romanticon. A woman named Lila fell for a person who seemed designed for her, a perfect listener, someone who understood her wounds. He disclosed similar traumas, aligning himself with her pain. Their connection was intense, fast, and intimate. Before long, he asked for money to fix a temporary crisis, citing a fabricated emergency. Lila complied. The relationship dissolved. Tricksters excel at becoming the narrative your loneliness wants, quickly weaving a story where they are indispensable. These patterns aren't moral caricatures. They're blueprints, repetitive sequences of attention, narrative alignment, escalation, and extraction. The role of technology and social media. In the digital age, tricksters have new tools. Social media accelerates proof, likes, follower counts, comments that can be faked or amplified, filtered images, and edited speeches present curated selves. Algorithms prioritize engagement, dramatic narrative spread. The pace of online interaction compresses time for deliberation. A charismatic voice with high production value will gain traction quickly. Deepfakes, bot farms, and impersonations make it easier to stage credibility. Influencers can buy followers, purchase reviews, and construct an illusion of consensus. In this environment, the heuristics we use in face-to-face interactions, eye contact, microexpression, are weakened. Instead, we rely on proxies, production polish, social metrics, testimonials. Tricksters exploit these proxies. Red flags, behavioral signatures of manipulation. Learn to recognize patterns, not just single actions. Red flags include rapid escalation, intimacy or requests that move too quickly, contradictory details, small lies that compound over time, pressure tactics, urgency, deadlines, or guilt tripping, isolation, attempts to wedge you away from support networks, overuse of flattery targeted at identity rather than specific achievement, boundary crossing followed by rationalization, reluctance to allow independent verification. When you notice clusters of these behaviors, treat the pattern as suspect. Even if each individual element seems innocuous, cognitive tools to resist influence. Resistance is not a single wall, but a toolkit. Here are mental strategies. 1. Time is a shield. Delayed decisions. Tricksters depend on urgency. Asking for time converts pressure into space for analysis. 2. The third-party check. Before major commitments, consult someone not involved emotionally. Outsiders often see the pattern faster. 3. Reframe flattery. Translate praise into specifics. Ask, what exactly did I do that mattered? Vague praise often masks manipulation. 4. The forensic mindset. Treat claims like evidence. Ask for documents, verifiable references, and traceable history. 5. Boundary scripts. Prepare short, neutral phrases. I need to check my calendar, or I don't share finances with new acquaintances. Use them to slow escalation. 6. Red teaming. Play devil's advocate against the offer. If you can imagine multiple plausible failures, the offer may be less credible. Cognitive inoculation. Exposure to weakened versions of manipulative arguments also helps. When you pre-experience persuasive tactics, you become more resistant in real encounters. Emotional regulation and somatic awareness. Tricksters work through feeling. Strengthen your nervous system. Grounding techniques. 3 deep breaths. Orienting to your environment. Name 5 things you see. And naming sensations reduce emotional reactivity. Interoceptive awareness. Notice the rise of warmth, the quick pulse, the softening in the chest. These are your internal trust alarms. Train to pause when they trigger. Self-compassion pause. When flattery lands, don't instantly absorb it. Say to yourself, I am listening, not deciding. Emotional literacy, precise labeling of feelings, reduces the chance of being swept away. Replace vague goodness with, I feel admired or I feel understood. Then ask, why is that feeling arising now? The ethics and psychology of deception. Why do people become tricksters? Motives vary. Need for resources. Some deceive to extract money or status. Narcissistic supply. Others feed on attention and adoration. Survival strategy. In some environments, deception is adaptive. Cognitive distortions. Some rationalize manipulation as necessary. Understanding motives helps us avoid simple moral judgments. It also clarifies possible interventions. For instance, if a trickster seeks admiration, depriving them of audience reduces their power. If someone deceives from survival instincts, structural changes, legal, economic, social support, may be the only effective long-term remedy. Repairing after deception, recovery and growth. If you've been deceived, shame and self-blame are common, but recovery is possible and often transformative. Steps to rebuild. 1. Name the event without self-judgment. Writing a factual account helps externalize the experience. 2. Externalize the pattern. Map behaviors you missed. This is not to blame yourself, but to learn recognition. 3. Seek social support. Trusted friends, therapy, or peer groups validate and normalize reactions. 4. Reclaim agency. Small, decisive actions, changing passwords, closing accounts, setting boundaries, restore control. 5. Find meaning. Can this be repurposed as a lesson, a new boundary, or even a story that helps others? Many people incubate post-deception growth, greater discernment, deeper values, and renewed priorities. Using shadow work to understand your vulnerabilities. The trickster often finds a tender seam in our shadow, unacknowledged desires, old wounds, secret hopes. Shadow work is a deliberate practice of shining light on those parts of ourselves. Exercises, journaling prompt, which unspoken wish would make me vulnerable to flattery. Imagery. Visualize the moment you felt most seen by someone manipulative. Ask what needs were being mirrored. Dialogue. Write a conversation with the part of you that wants quick validation. Ask it, why now? And listen. This work is not self-blame. It's curiosity. When you recognize the internal triggers, you can design safeguards, practical scripts, and routines. Prepare verbal and behavioral scripts to employ in risky moments. Scripts. Thank you. That's generous. I'll think it over and get back to you. I appreciate your view. I'd like to verify that independently. I'm not comfortable moving forward without consulting my partner/advisor. Routines. The 48-hour rule. No major commitments in 48 hours. Verification checklist. Ask 3 concrete, verifiable questions before any financial engagement. Social audit. Once a month. Review new relationships that escalated quickly and evaluate patterns. Having a default practice reduces improvisational vulnerability. The gentle art of disengagement. If you suspect manipulation, disengage gracefully. Tactics. De-escalate intimacy. Move conversations to public or recorded settings. Introduce friction. Ask for written terms, receipts, or references. Reroute resources. Refuse financial transactions that are not transparent. Exit language. I don't think this is a fit for me right now. Short, firm, non-argumentative. Disengagement can be blunt or gentle. The important thing is to preserve your safety and boundaries. The power of collective checks. Communities are a defense. Collective vetting. Peer reviews, reference checks, shared experiences. Exposes tricksters quickly. Online platforms that crowdsource reputations often act as early warning systems. Encourage norms. Ask for references in professional contexts. Share cautionary tales in safe community spaces. Build small accountability groups for high-stakes decisions. A network that values transparency reduces opportunities for individual exploitation, transforming the traumatic story into agency. A pivotal step after deception is narrative revision. You are not merely a victim. Your story can contain agency. Techniques. The authoring exercise. Rewrite the experience from the perspective of 3 months, 6 months, and 5 years later. What lesson did you harvest? How did you respond? The public test. Sharing your story, anonymously or not, reframes it and reduces shame. The ritual of reclamation. Symbolically close the chapter. Burn the letter. Delete the contact. Perform a small ceremony that marks the break. Narrative work converts material loss into psychological capital. When to involve authorities. Some tricksters cross into criminality, fraud, identity theft, coercion. Know when to escalate. If finances were stolen or misused. If identity documents were compromised. When someone's safety is at risk. When ongoing scams target multiple individuals. Document everything. File police reports. Contact financial institutions and leverage regulatory bodies. Systems can be slow, but documentation creates patterns that matter. From victimhood to craft, using knowledge responsibly. There's a dark edge to understanding manipulation. One could become skillful at it. The ethical imperative is clear. Use insight to protect, not to harm. Commit to helping others spot patterns. Advocating for systemic changes, clearer regulation of online testimonials, better platform transparency. Holding space for nuance. Some behaviors are mistakes. Others are intentional. Knowledge minus ethics becomes a new risk. Use what you learn to build defenses and increase community resilience. Exercises to build discernment. Practice makes cognitive muscle stronger. Try these. Exercise A, spot the move. Watch media interviews or charismatic sales pitches. Pause and label persuasive moves. Flattery, scarcity, attunement. Practice naming them aloud. Exercise B, the empathy test. When someone flatters you, ask a neutral question. Note whether the flattery deflates or persists. Authentic praise can handle scrutiny. Manipulative flattery often frays. Exercise C, the 10-question audit. Before trust, ask 10 factual questions. If answers are evasive or inconsistent, pause. Exercise D, role reversal. Play the role of observer in imagined scenarios. What would you warn a friend about? This creates psychological distance. These small exercises strengthen the pattern recognition that prevents future exploitation. The strange allure of the trickster, why we are drawn to them. There's a paradox. While we fear deceivers, we are often fascinated by them. Tricksters occupy liminal territory between order and chaos, convention and freedom. They promise shortcuts, secrets, and adventure. Our culture romanticizes them. The clever rogue, the charismatic rebel. This allure has evolutionary roots. Risk-taking leaders can create group advantage, but it also carries costs. Distinguishing admiration for audacity from endorsement of deception is a subtle but crucial line. Cultural and gender dimensions. Perceptions of tricksters are shaped by culture and gender. In some societies, cunning is admired. In others, it's condemned. Gender expectations influence how charm is read. Assertiveness in men may be seen as leadership, while in women it might be misread or weaponized. Intersectional awareness helps. Recognize that vulnerability and risk are framed differently across identities. Teaching others how to spread awareness. If you want to help others, share clear, non-shaming education. Use examples without naming victims. Provide checklists and scripts for protection. Promote community verification practices. Awareness spreads through stories and practical rituals. Teaching is a form of resistance. The psychology of recovery communities. Support groups and survivor communities offer validation and shared learning. They create a record of patterns and help formalize cautionary tales into cultural knowledge. Find groups that emphasize agency and growth, not only victim identity. Recovery communities are laboratories for cultural resilience. From seduction to redemption, case studies of transformed tricksters. Not every trickster remains in deception. Some, when confronted with consequences, transform, engaging in restitution, transparency, or meaningful reparative work. Rehabilitation is rare, but possible. Understanding the conditions that encourage change, accountability, meaningful loss of supply, and restorative opportunities helps us design better systems for rehabilitation. Advanced guardrails, contracts, public verification, and legal structures for high-stakes relationships, business deals, investment, intimate partnerships with shared finances. Enact formal guardrails, written contracts with third-party escrow, public, verifiable testimonials with contactable references, background checks where justified, periodic audits. Procedures create friction that discourages opportunistic manipulation. The role of education and schools. We should teach influence literacy early. Schools can include basic modules, media literacy and source verification, emotional regulation skills, critical thinking applied to social claims, ethical reasoning about persuasion. Early inoculation reduces lifetime vulnerability. How to use charm ethically. Charm itself is morally neutral. It can build rapport, facilitate cooperation, and heal. The difference is intent and transparency. Ethical charm centers consent, mutual benefit, and verifiability. Practice charm with clear boundaries and purposes that uplift others. The long arc, building a life less susceptible to deception. Long-term resistance evolves through identity. Cultivate robust values that act as filters. Build networks that provide candid feedback. Make slow commitments with incremental trust. Maintain curiosity and humility. Confidence without arrogance reduces both conning others and being conned. Consider the story of a person who transformed their heartbreak into a communal advocacy group that helps others spot romance scams. Or the small-town entrepreneur who, after con, became a transparency activist who trained local businesses in verification. These stories show that pain can become purpose. a mirror back to the earlier theme that transformation often follows encounter with trickery. Now I want to hear from you. What was the most convincing charm you ever experienced? Did it change you? Share your stories in the comments. Anonymity is fine, and help build a map of warning signs for others. If you found this useful, hit like, subscribe, and press the bell for more deep dives into human behavior. Tricksters will always exist. They are woven into the human story. But you are not powerless. Knowledge is a lantern that pierces glamour. Slow decisions, community checks, and internal clarities are not obstacles to human warmth. They are the scaffolding that lets authentic relationships grow. Let curiosity be your compass, not unguarded longing. Learn the language of charm, recognize the tricks, and, when appropriate, turn encounter into teaching and growth. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, stay kind, and stay discerning.